Hello! And maybe welcome back for some of you. Quick introduction, just for the sake of it. I'm Q, I'm 25, and I'm trying to learn digital art because I wanna draw my favorite anime characters. This is a continuation from my previous video, where I showed my learning process during week 1, along with a bit more information about myself that isn't very important, to be honest. I have nothing else to say as an introduction, so let's just get on with it. The plan for week 2 was both simpler and more ambitious than week 1. I decided I would only draw, and by draw I mean copy reference, one character a day from shoulders up, but I would also try to color it the same way as it is in the reference. As a quick note, every time I color something, I pick the colors by eye, if that's what you call it. My workspace looks like this. I draw on the tablet, but the reference is open on my PC, so picking the colors from the reference would be impossible. Now, starting off with day 8. My first choice was Akane from My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999, because it's a very wholesome story and she's cute. This one is specifically from the cover of the second volume of the manga. I was going for an easy design, at least for the first few days, and Akane seemed perfect for it, because while it is easy, it's still very pretty. The art style for the manga and the anime is also exactly what the modern type of anime art style is in my eyes, and I just really like her, to be honest, that's it. And look, I learned the bucket tool, finally. This saves so much time, honestly. I don't really do line art for these sketches and just clean them up enough before I move to coloring. So there are always those white bits around where the bucket tool didn't work, but I just let it be for now. It's all only practice anyway, and when I zoom out, I can't even see it anymore. And this is the result! I was genuinely shocked with how good I thought it was. There are some things about the hair, especially this part, that I'd change, but overall, when I realized it took me only a bit over an hour, my ego was spiking, which, as a little spoiler, will come back to bite me in the ass later. But yeah, day 8 was a success, and I don't really have much to say about it other than that, except maybe that the references are the best thing ever. I love them. I still can't use them the way they're meant to be used, because I'm only copying everything I see, but my point still stands. Day 9, on the other hand, was not as humbling as it could have been. That day, I actually had a pretty tight schedule, so I went for something easier. I found this screenshot from the Slime anime with Rimuru, but in Raphael version. It was more close-up than Akane and with less colors and bigger shapes, so it should have ended up even better than the previous day. But because I was rushing it, I obviously missed a few things, like this area here with the hair and the ear is supposed to look different, but I only realized it later on and didn't bother with changing it. I also think this Rimuru looks softer than he did in the anime. Like, in the anime, there was a more serious / chilling kinda moment for everyone involved, because he has just evolved, but here he looks like he's lost, I'd say. In the end, I worked on him almost as long as I did on Akane, but I do feel like the time pressure I put on myself was to blame for it, because I did have to rush a few things, but it did one good thing. While working on him, I discovered clipped layers by mistake when I clicked on something I didn't mean to. It's amazing how convenient some tools are and how helpful it would be if I actually took the time to learn more about the program itself, if I weren't so lazy. Moving on. By the end, I wasn't too sure what I was trying to do. The screenshot I was referencing looked like it had that weird glow around his robes, and I was just there like, how? How do I do that? What even is this? It would probably work better with a background, but I'm not going into that territory anytime soon. Looking back, I would say day 8 was definitely better than day 9, but day 9 wasn't that bad. At this point, I was really starting to enjoy coloring eyes, and it will show in the next piece as well. But lesson learned, rushing isn't good, says the person who's willingly ignoring the fundamentals and brute forcing their way through the entire process of learning. So, Day 10 was a bit of a roller coaster for me. I picked this official poster for Summertime Render, which is another great show, by the way, and if you haven't seen it yet, you absolutely should. Though I'm pretty sure it's still in the Disney Plus jail. I only saw it because I bribed my friend into lending me his subscription. Initially, I was gonna draw just Shinpei, and I gotta say, when it turned out this good, even though he's facing to the right, my self-esteem got such a boost. I decided I'd draw Ushio too, because I was feeling so powerful, and I struggled with her head much more than I did with Shinpei's. I think it's because it's the kind of shape I'm not used to, and by that I mean bigger forehead without any hair obstructing it, but I got there in the end. That being said, you can clearly see that I always have to tweak my sketches quite a lot before I'm happy with them. I always draw the head either too long or too big, and the eyes are never in the right position, which I was starting to figure out I should really work on some more. On to the coloring. Watching the anime eyes go from empty and lifeless to brimming with light is so satisfying. I was really happy with how these turned out. Less so with their hair, but it was still a win for me. The last bit of improvement I made was realizing I can actually color the sketch/line art, make it a bit more pretty. Like here with Ushio's hair, it really does seem like the light is hitting the strands here if I color the line art, or so I think. But for the whole 2 hours of working on this, I was on a real power high. There were moments where I wouldn't believe I drew this, that I did it. If you saw my last video on week 1, I also said a similar thing after having done a few Shaman King references, and this is basically a deja vu of that. I would say I'm a pretty self-aware person. I was riding that self-esteem high after this piece and I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it wasn't long after I had closed my tablet that I willingly pressed the brakes on myself. Cause like, yeah, these 3 turned out pretty good, and I was really close to being tricked into thinking that I had magically come super skilled over those 3 days, which obviously wasn't the case. I enjoyed my ego boost for a while because everyone needs a pat on the shoulder sometimes, but then I kind of sat down to it and finally admitted to myself, just because I may be somewhat good at copying what I see doesn't mean I'm good at art. Which is to say that from here on, I reversed my learning process once again. So back on day 4, I told myself that using the skills I didn't even have was stupid, and I switched to simply drawing exactly what I had picked as my references. And it wasn't a bad decision. These few days of that type of study helped me a lot, and not just with confidence and motivation, but also with some more actual basic skills. For example, I actually noticed that whenever I draw eyes, they're most likely to be set around this area, so from the middle to the top of where the ears are. I also noticed I tend to draw them far too close, and that I should keep it in mind to separate them more in the future. Younger characters tend to have rounder faces, which works the same in real life, I guess, so I have no idea why I needed so long to acknowledge that. And sometimes it even depends on whether it's a girl or a boy. There were also a few other useful things I learned, but moving on. I learned that there is a limit to what I can learn from just copying and pasting existing art. If I were to move on to copy actual anatomy guides, now that would be a completely different story, and it would probably be the best choice I could possibly make, but I'm still too lazy for that. So the revised plan, version 2, was similar to what I was doing on days 2 to 4. I would get a reference for the character I'm drawing, preferably something from the actual character design sheet they often post for anime and manga, with just them standing up and that's it. But unlike in the beginning, I would also get a second reference for the pose that I would attempt to draw, and then I would try to draw that character in that pose, which is something I wasn't doing during days 2 to 4, since I never had references for poses back then. As a note, you will very obviously see me fail, but I did try to mimic the art style from the reference as closely as I could. I will bother about my own art style in the future if I feel like it. That's how we go into day 11. And what a humbling experience it was. I already spoiled it before, but I started with Dena from 86, which was a mistake because her uniform was just, you can see for yourself. And yes, I highly recommend you go read the light novels because they're great and I love them. For the pose, I wanted her to reach behind and tie her hair up into a ponytail because I didn't really have a better idea for anything and I wanted to hide her hands. Anyway, I was really trying to plan this pose the best I could before I started on the clothes, which I guess kind of helped, but not really. I kept coming back to work on the face over and over again, same with the body and with the clothes. By the end, I was somewhat happy with the eyes, but I think I made her face too long. I think in the anime specifically, she has a rounder face. And also, this part should be shorter. In the reference, the space between her chest area and where the hips start is smaller. But I was using myself as a reference, and I'm a real human being with very different proportions to anime girls. I think looking between the two references was messing with my brain, and that's why it looks like this. I ended up spending almost 3 hours on this, and I mean, I don't hate it. It was just a real kick in the stomach after the high I experienced these past 3 days. Because when I finished these 3, I was really happy with them. And when I finished this one, I was satisfied for my level. Comparing this Rena to Summertime Render Piece, you can clearly see it's a massive downgrade. The only thing I think is on more or less the same level are the eyes, but that's because I used an easier reference, so they're not as detailed. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really discouraged by this. Life would be so much easier if by simply drawing what other people draw, I could get better, but it just doesn't work like that. I know. Logically speaking, I always knew that, but actually seeing that lesson with my own 2 eyes was a big blow, which is why I'm genuinely grateful that I am a self-aware person, because yes, when I compare this to this, it's a huge downgrade. There is no arguing about this. But when I compare Rena from day 11 to literally any pose I drew on days 1 to 4, it was a big improvement. My proportions are far from proper, and the faces I draw look weird, but compared to those, I'm still improving. So I forced myself to swallow my pride and move on to day 12, sticking with 86, but going for Shin this time. My god, proportions were not working with me that day. I had to make things smaller and bigger and then smaller over and over again before I was somewhat satisfied. Same with his hair. I would have worked on the sketch even longer after it already took me a whole hour, but I stopped myself. There was no way it would ever be perfect, so there was no point in trying to make it so. And what is going on with his wrist? I have no idea. I will pretend I can't see it. If I can't see it, it's not there. How do I draw claws? Also no idea. But this day wasn't in vain. I had a very embarrassing realization. So basically, as I was drawing this, I noticed I was mostly staying in this area between the red and yellow colors. And in my head, I was like, with Rena, I was staying here on the opposite because she's basically all just blue. How funny considering the plot of 86 and the contrast between the characters and... Hold on, wait a fucking second. So yeah. I may still know close to nothing about color theory, but I finally remembered what complementary colors are and that they go well together. If my art teacher from middle school were to learn of this, he would give me a lecture and then he would take back every single good grade I ever got, because how dare I forget his teachings. But anyway, I think Shin ended up better than Rena when it comes to the face, but I'm not sure about the clothes. I would say Rena wins this one, but it may be because of that thing that I can't see and therefore will not acknowledge. Day 13. I was once again kind of busy and didn't have much time, but I didn't want to waste a day completely, so I drew Kenma from Haikyuu, because he has a simple yet very cool design and he's such a mood, honestly. It was a simple angle without too much body showing, so I decided I would at least try to draw his hands to feel somewhat better about having a cheat day, or rather I would draw one hand and then mirror it. I know it's not always the best thing to do, but if I'm drawing someone from this straight on angle, I will cheat my way through it. And here is Kenma. He's not bad. It's simple, so I expected to feel better about him than I did with Rena and Shin. But at this point, I'll take any encouragement I can, because next we have day 14, which means, once again, no references at all, because apparently I like to suffer with myself. But this time I decided to make things a bit easier for myself. Before I started the actual drawing, I took some time to sit down in front of my PC, open my pretty anime images folder and stare at it. That's right. I was absorbing the anime art information through osmosis by staring at some of my favorite pieces for a long time from much too close up. Did it end up helping me? A little bit. So this week I went for the second character I drew on day one. He's the youngest of them all in my head. So I wanted to go for that why are you talking to me teenage/young adult vibe. And in the beginning, I think I was doing quite well. I usually have to tweak it a lot, but this time I only made some very minor changes to the face. I was quite pleased with both the shape of the head and the face itself and with the eyes. But then the hair came and yeah, I still have no idea how to draw it. I actually wanted his hair to be more fluffy, but it ended up like any popular male lead from any school romance manga in the mid-2000s. Let's say he's going through a phase here and I'll just fix it sometime in the future. Hair aside, this phase made me too full of myself yet again. I thought I could draw him holding one of the earphones like this, and as you can see, I was struggling. And then I just gave up. I kept the same clothes as I drew on day one, purely because I couldn't think of anything else, and I thought it was fine, until I had to think of colors. With his hair, I kind of just gave up and gave him once again the popular kid from 2000s blonde hair, for now anyway. The clothes were whatever, and then I got to the eyes, and whenever I don't know what to pick, I just go for purple because I like it, which is what I did here. I tried out a few other colors before, but I don't know. I will work on the colors when I actually know how they work. Oh, and yes, I got so used to just cleaning up my sketches instead of doing line art that I forgot I did it last week and that I should do it here as well. And here is the end result. You have my drawing from day one, which took roughly 15 minutes, I would say, and this one, which took me an hour and 50 minutes, more or less. Did I reach the point where I drew something I'm genuinely happy with? No. If it was just about the face or just the eyes, I could maybe be inclined to say yes, but overall, I mean, it's better than day 1 or day 7. Ironically enough, I think it's also better than Rena and maybe Shin from days 11 and 12. At the same time, I think my learning curve is slowing down. The progress from day 1 to 7 was huge, but from day 7 to 14, it's there, I guess. But while there wasn't too much improvement skill-wise, I still think this week was very much needed, because at the end of it, I realized a few things. One was obviously the practical stuff I already mentioned, like where the eyes are and such, but another thing was that the art from actual anime, character sheets and screenshots is pretty, very pretty, but it's also much simpler than, let's say, manga or light novel covers or even the anime posters, which makes sense. Anime has animations and music and voice actors to catch people's attention, while illustrations only have themselves. And personally, I think I prefer the latter, so I'll probably stick to references from the official illustrations rather than anime screenshots or character sheets, which means there's going to be much more detail and therefore it'll be more difficult for me. That realization kind of pushed me towards another point. I should take my time. I know I'm repeating myself, but I should really take my time. What I mean is, from now on, and throughout at least weeks 3 and 4, instead of drawing a new character every single day, I will be focusing on actually picking the characters I would like to draw and then studying them for 2 to 3 days. What their face and eyes shape is, how to draw their hair, what their body proportions are. Maybe I'll mess around with some brushes to see if this changes anything about the end result as well when it comes to coloring. And then I'll try to draw them more seriously. I won't spoil which characters I've picked, but let's just say recency bias is very much a thing when it comes to me. And that's it, 2 full weeks and a total of 22 hours into learning digital art, and I'm still very much frustrated with myself. But you know, at the same time, I do think it's fun, at least while I'm in the process of drawing. If it wasn't fun, I would have dropped it like a long time ago, probably around week 2. And to this day, again, I'm from the future now, I still haven't dropped it, so yeah. Anyway, thank you to anyone who clicked on this video or on the previous one. if you want to go check it out, go for it. And I'll be back with week 3 soon-ish. Bye.